Huddle Up Podcast is sponsored by Arena Eats. Log on to the website arenaeats.app, that's arenaeats.app, for the ultimate fan experience. At your favorite sports venue, Arena Eats mobile app, pre-order, express pickup, and in-seat delivery. How do you place your order? Let's start this college football playoff discussion with just a little bit of thoughts of what happened this past weekend. And we talked about some of these like stupid hot takes earlier. And I'm going to kick it off with the first of the games, and that was, of course, the Rose Bowl. Anybody that wants to bring in this hot take about how Notre Dame didn't belong in the playoff because they got smoked by Alabama is absurd. Like for starters, and I'm not just trying to pat my own team on the back here, Notre Dame held Alabama to its lowest point total in like 2 years.
Since they lost the title game.
Right.
I think.
Like
that was the last time they scored less than 35.
Alabama, Notre Dame's defense absolutely did the job. And yes, Notre Dame's offense did not,
except on the scoring plays.
But we said it last week that if Notre Dame was going to even have a chance in this game, it was going to fall on the offense. And the offense, they struggled. Ian Book, unfortunately, over his last two games, was Ian Book. And don't get me wrong, winningest quarterback in Notre Dame history. He's put up stats, but like Ian Book is only ever been what he's always been, and that's the unfortunate legacy to me for Ian Book at Notre Dame is he never went above what I always assumed that he was. And in the final two games, in the biggest two games of his career, he was brilliant in that first game against Clemson. Unfortunately, couldn't get it done. But like, look at what Texas A&M had to come from behind to beat a North Carolina team that was missing a lot of its key players because of opt-outs and things like that.
Like that game, like North Carolina is a legitimate opponent, but they were not all there.
They were not the North Carolina team that Notre Dame throttled, by the way.
Yeah, no, it was not. And Notre Dame did struggle in that game early.
Yes.
They're a good team. North Carolina's got a lot of good – it looks like this coaching staff of this program's got a bright future, but they were not all healthy for this game against A&M.
So, Notre Dame belonged there, regardless of what happened. Honest to God, like I won't lie, I stopped watching – because I'm like, I don't need to – I've seen this before. I don't need to see it anymore.
Well, Notre Dame got it I don't want to say close, but they got it competitive in the second half. There was a point where I was like, you know what? If we go down and score here, all of a sudden it's like a 1 or 1.5 score game. We're like right in this. And then, of course, it was like, 3 and out or make our own mistake.
Yeah, the offense
there was the deep ball interception that was a quick swing. Where you were going in to score, lost those points, gave up a quick score the other way. It was unfortunate to watch. I think that, it just came down to me, the difference. And I got into a couple of spats online with folks that were doing the hype and the classic, Notre Dame gets smoked in bowls, or Notre Dame had no business being there, or they're just proof that the BCS is about money. And I'm like, really? Ohio State gets in with 6 wins, and you're telling me that Notre Dame's the reason?
Notre Dame's the reason it's about money?
The other 3 teams in there carry do they have as much in the history of college football? Maybe Alabama does, but the other 2 are like this riding this money train that Ohio State and Clemson do.
The Big Ten had to change their rules.
Yeah.
Basically to get Ohio State into this game.
Even give them a shot.
Don't tell me that it's Notre Dame's the only money line in this.
The Big Ten changed their rules because of money. College football broke probably, arguably one of their rules because of money. If not having a conference title game means that you didn't play enough games, then not playing enough games should mean that you didn't play enough games.
Precisely.
But that's a whole separate point. But I got into these spats, and in every single one of them, it was, oh, well, they're never could compete and blah, blah, blah. And I just kept repeating the same, like, well, who are you putting it? Because I wanted to know who I'm arguing against.
Right.
And 3 of the 4 wouldn't even name a team. Like, they wouldn't even, they were like, well, I mean, maybe A&M or maybe so. I'm like, A&M? You're going to put A&M in
the team that got more than doubled up by Alabama? That A&M
in their
team?
only real contested game of the year.
Right.
Like, they didn't put up a good showing. I'm like, so you can't argue that. And I finally got one to tell me that Georgia, based on strength of schedule.
Oh, for Christ's sake.
Like Georgia, and I saw a list. Georgia, on paper, played like the 3rd or 4th hardest schedule in the country. And I looked them in the face. I'm like, well, yeah, they did. And the 2 hardest pieces of that, they lost to.
They got their asses kicked.
Whereas Notre Dame, who, by the way, on both of those lists came in 7th. It's not like they were in like
right. They weren't
place.
like 90th on those.
Like Notre
lists.
Dame had a tough. I'm like, the difference is Notre Dame has, first of all, 1 less loss, and second of all, beat a top 5 team. So
they beat the number 1 team in the country
at the time. Yeah, but I mean, just at the end of the season,
sure,
you're like top 5 team. But yeah, I don't know. I think Notre Dame. The proof in the pudding is that. And what I'm trying to tell you is anybody that came at me personally didn't have an argument.
No,
I think there's
they
more
never
arguments
do.
And there's more arguments for teams over Ohio State. Now, did Ohio State come in and prove like, hey, you know what? Like, F you guys, look what we did. Yeah, they did. Like, and based on that was never an issue. I was never questioning Ohio State's talent level and ability to play with these other teams.
We'll get to we'll talk about them.
We'll talk about them in a minute. As far as Notre Dame goes, the track record was there. It's just unfortunately for Notre Dame, and I don't know if it's still an academic issue. I don't know if it's still something else. Notre Dame is continuing, and the reason they keep showing up is because they're continuing year after year or every other year, showing that they are better than the other teams vying for that 4th or 3rd playoff spot. But there is still an enormous gap between that 4th or 5th spot in the country and 1 and 2.
Yes. Yeah.
There is
here's the deal. There was
right
3 Power 5 teams that went undefeated this year. Alabama went 11-0. Notre Dame went 10-0. Ohio State went 6-0. That's it. Like, how do you not put them in? It's not about money. It's about and again, the team that one of the teams that they beat along the way was a top 15 North Carolina team. One of those teams they beat along the way was at the time number 1 in the country, Clemson. The resume is stronger than anybody else behind them. It's better than Texas A&M's. It was better than Oklahoma's. It was better than Cincinnati's. The resume absolutely is better than Ohio State's. Ohio State and I'm not faulting Ohio State for only playing 6 games. I'm not. So we'll transition to that because I've said all along that I thought Ohio State was one of the best 4 teams in the country. My issue with Ohio State was number of games, not their fault. And they proved this weekend, obviously, in the Sugar Bowl, that they belonged in this top 4. I never questioned their resume. So there's a lot of Ohio State fans out there, and I know a lot of more of it is shots at and don't get me wrong, I loved Dabo Swinney be made to look like an absolute freaking moron. Because that guy is the most pretentious prick.
It's insane.
He is the absolute worst. Like, I hate Nick Saban because he's that good. I hate Dabo Swinney because he's an asshole.
Nick Saban is the New York Yankees.
Right.
Like, Nick Saban is the, God, fucking stop winning
Just stop being good.
Right. Whereas Dabo Swinney's that, guy that's like, yeah, my dad can be your dad. Shut up. There's no way to find the answer to this.
I saw a great tweet. It said, remember how Alabama spent 2 weeks just trying to delegitimize Notre Dame? No. Nick Saban spent 2 weeks figuring out how to kick Notre Dame's ass.
Right.
Dabo Swinney spent 2 weeks talking about how great they were and how Ohio State didn't belong there. And which,
by the way, if you're doing that leading up to the rankings, if you were Ohio State trying to sell yourself to get in, maybe. Once the top 4 is there, who are you selling yourself to?
Right. Why are you justifying the fact that you put Ohio State at 11? Huddle Up Podcast is sponsored by Arena Eats. Log on to the website arenaeats.app, that's arenaeats.app, for the ultimate fan experience. At your favorite sports venue, Arena Eats mobile app, pre-order, express pickup, and in-seat delivery. How do you place your order?
Like, you know what I'd like to do? I'd just like to hand the other team locker room material. Because in college, locker room material works a lot better than the NFL.
Exactly. Because, and because when you're Dabo Swinney, you're telling your kids in your locker room that you are infinitely better than the team you're playing against. So
you don't even have to try.
Right. You have already put yourself basically in the college football playoff national title game. Where in Columbus, they're going, we're going to kick this team in the mouth.
Wait a damn minute.
And they absolutely – there was a quarter in that game where Ohio State outscored Clemson 21-0.
Yeah, and I don't think Fields – don't get me wrong, I don't think Fields did enough to usurp from an NFL draft perspective.
Oh, absolutely not. Absolutely not.
But what he did was got himself into the conversation for pick number 2.
For the New York Jets, absolutely.
Which is hilarious. Which, by the way – when you look at the last 3 quarterbacks drafted out of Ohio State, not a very strong record.
Yikes.
It is not great. They are guys that come in with a lot of promise.
One of them just got released 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, just got released. Another one lost his job when the XFL folded. It hasn't been the strongest run as far as your Heisman
I don't think Fields is going to be that great in the NFL.
He might not be.
He hasn't been that great in college, but he was this week.
But the most New York Jets thing in the world would not be simply winning and losing your pick at Trevor Lawrence. It would be getting locked into the proverbial second pick, only to have the first quarterback turn out phenomenal and your quarterback turn out like Sam Darnold.
Right. But like I said, Ohio State belonged there. They proved it. It was never a question of are they good enough. It was a question of resume.
It was and it was a question in a sport where resumes have proven.
And honest to God, I'm more mad at this point that Notre Dame ended up 4 because I thought their resume was stronger. Because you put Notre Dame against what Clemson was this past week, and maybe Clemson prepares different if they're playing Notre Dame again. But you put Notre Dame against what that Clemson team that showed up this week, and Notre Dame might be in the national championship game.
Could be.
Only get beat by either Ohio State or Alabama. So let's talk about that game, Sean. Against the spread this last week, I went 2-4, 35-29 overall. You went 4-2, 40-24 overall. So regardless of what happens in this one, you are going to win the college football season. But Monday night, 8 o'clock on the ESPN networks, again, they have all that bonus coverage and crazy channels. Let's give you. I'll give you a little bit. Let me. Where is it? Let me.
No, we did it!
But ESPN Family of Networks. That ESPN is the main channel. Then of course you have all that extra stuff like ESPN2, ESPNU, all of that stuff. Number 3, Ohio State.
Is there going to be a Dabo Swinney cam of him watching the game from home? Because I'll probably watch that.
I'd actually pay money for that.
I would pay pay-per-view.
I'd pay money that I, quite frankly, I can't afford at this point, but I would pay it.
Pay it just to watch him cry and complain and make excuses the entire 3 hours to be amazing.
Of course, with no mask on either. Number 3, Ohio State. 7-0. They are playing, of course, number 1 Alabama. 12-0. A 7-point favorite is the Crimson Tide. 75 is your over/under mark in the college football playoff national championship game.
Defense.
God, that number is just absurd. I think Ohio State's going to cover the 7. I don't think this is going to be a blowout either way. Obviously, I'm going with the over. I think it is just going to be an offensive showcase as it has been. It may come down to who has the ball last. But, it feels weird to even say this, but like, is Ryan Day a better coach for this Ohio State team than Urban Meyer was? And it feels like really odd to say that because Urban Meyer was really good. But for some reason, maybe it's just this year and the stars aligned and Ohio State, they were one of the teams and the people that really pushed to get this season on the field. I don't know. But Ryan Day, as much as I don't like the guy, I think he's kind of a prick too. But he has his team behind him. And so do I think Ohio State can win this game? I absolutely do. I'm tired of either of these teams being near the top. I will not be watching this game, or at least not much of it. I'll be watching Monday Night Raw. I'm going to go Ohio State to cover, and I'm taking the over.
By the way, ironically, we talked the whole season about how we didn't blame Ohio State. It wasn't, they weren't getting canceled because of their own. They have so many COVID-19 cases right now. This game is being considered being delayed an entire week because of Ohio State currently being just mauled with they're looking at a previously established January 18th makeup date as an opportunity to play the game because they have too many COVID cases. I say let them play.
Wait, I think Nick Saban's daughter had tweeted that Ohio State was just afraid to play them.
Well, that was stupid.
Right. Didn't you learn from Dabo not to poke the bear?
Either way, this weekend, next weekend, I am Bama, Bama, Bama. I am Roll Tide. I think this has all the makings of the last time that we got beat by Clemson, and everybody thought we didn't belong. Notre Dame didn't belong there, and Clemson went to play Alabama and steamrolled Alabama. And I feel like Ohio State had to do something to prove they belong there. I feel like they've already done it. I don't think they're going to sit back and chill out and just let Alabama roll all over them, but there's only so much you can do. I think Alabama's a more complete team top to bottom. I think they have a better overall offense. They have the Heisman Trophy winner just announced a few hours ago. Devontae Smith, wide receiver, wins the quarterbacks award of the Heisman Trophy.
First wide receiver since Desmond Howard, I think.
Since Desmond Howard in 1991. Good call there. But good for him. I'm excited to see a position.
First non-quarterback since Derrick Henry 5 years ago.
Yeah, who is one of only. Can you believe that Alabama has 3 Heisman Trophy winners? I think it's only 3. Ever.
No.
Let's see. He joins Mark Ingram and Derrick Henry as the only Alabama players to win the Heisman
How does
Trophy
that happen?
In the program's history. So you mean to tell me no one before,
even in the Bear Bryant era, nobody won a Heisman for Alabama?
So Mark, what's amazing is both of their previous winners still play in the NFL.
Jesus.
One runs at a high level, the other one watches his teammates run at a high level. But either way, good for him. Good for Alabama. I like Alabama to cover that point. Cover the 7 points. I think it's got to go over, right?
It has to.
This has shootout written all over it. However, I'm going to take the under. I feel like this is a trap. I feel like it's a trap. I feel like Alabama's going to play enough defense. I think Ohio State's going to come out sluggish, whether they don't have enough players to play or.
I question the health of Justin Fields. I don't know what internal damage got done on that hit, which, by the way, should not have been targeting.
Do you think that hit caused him to have a COVID case?
Possibly. Like he's got like a spleen injury. That's one thing that would
annoy the crap out of me is if years down the line we find out that the COVID cases.
Oh, the ESPN really E60 on this team is going to be fantastic.
We need Fields to be on the field. No, I think from what I saw, Alabama's defense and I just don't know. Alabama's offense just. I'm not saying Ohio State has no weapons, but Alabama's offense has NFL caliber players.
They have 3 Heisman Trophy finalists, by the way.
Yes,
3 of them.
And any one of them could catch a ball at any given time.
It's unbelievable.
So
you got Bama.
I got Bama. Roll Tide. Roll Tide, roll Tide, roll Tide. I like this the whole way through. The one thing that does scare me is much like Sweeney he didn't have Ohio State at 11th, but Nick Saban's poll did have Ohio State out of the top 4. Just throwing that out there. His coach's poll, final coach's poll vote, did not have Ohio State in the top 4, so he also feels Ohio State doesn't belong. I don't know if that affects the second game as much as the first one.
Probably not. Huddle Up Podcast is sponsored by Arena Eats. Log on to the website arenaeats.app, that's arenaeats.app, for the ultimate fan experience. At your favorite sports venue, Arena Eats mobile app, pre-order, express pickup, and in-seat delivery. How do you place your order?